Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of Planning and Highways Committee on the 8th of April 2025. And this meeting is being recorded for publication on the Thatcham Town Council YouTube channel. So, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
None to note this evening, Chairman.
Thank you. I think it's inevitable looking around the room. Declarations of interest.
Well,
Anyone declarations of interest?
I've got a few, Chair.
Okay.
Bear with me. Agenda item 8, the members' bid for the speed indicator devices on Bowling Green Road.
Yes.
Is obviously something that Councillor Brooks and I applied for as ward members at West Berkshire Council. Agenda item 9, the West Berkshire Council taxi policy, is something that falls under my portfolio at West Berkshire. In my capacity as portfolio for community engagement and public safety. And in the event that we do consider under agenda item 10, the planning application 25/00378/4 match, the land west of Heath Lane, north of Bowling Green Road, Thatcham. I am also a member of Caldash Parish Council who are considering their position as well. But obviously any decision I am required to make this evening will be made in the interest of the process of Thatcham.
So they, in fact, they have made their representations already in no uncertain terms. Okay, so item 3.1 to take as read and confirm as accurate the minutes of the meeting held on 11th of March. So I'd like to so propose. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lunn. And then those in favour of approving the minutes. Thank you very much. Planning applications, of which we have one to consider.
yes, Thatcham West, 10 Westfield Crescent, Thatcham. This is for a subdivision of a plot to form a new self-built dwelling, together with extensions and alterations to the existing dwelling. I will now show you the existing floor and roof plans for the application. Let me zoom in a little bit. So, existing elevations. So the front elevation, the side elevation. As I said, this is existing. I can now move on to the proposal. So these are the proposed first floor roof bands. As you can see. So essentially creating some more accommodation there. And so there's a little site plan of the proposal as well. I will show you a Google map of the location, jog your memories, but we're all familiar.
The dotted line, by the way, that goes across there is the infamous oil pipeline.
Oh, that's
and the exclusion zone.
So that's the block plan. That's the proposal for the alterations. So
can you go back to the block plan just so I can having seen refresh my memory as to which property it is. So it's in fact an extra property, not an extension.
Yeah. It's 10A.
Yeah.
So this is the location that we are looking at. This one here.
Doesn't they want an extension and a new build?
Yeah, self-build.
I'll show you now. Just that's quite substantial alteration. Yes.
My instincts are you're never going to fit 5 cars and 5 cars get out of their head or something. And I'm not highways designer,
You just come here on a full council and found out about that.
Exactly.
So it's look incredibly.
So they're all pulling. They all have a straight line out. If you take the all the way at the corner.
The one in the bottom, the nearest the road,
Yeah.
it's not got a straight line there.
They're all in this.
Well, so they're going out. You've got that passage, that public passageway to the right. There's the bottom here. They've got a row of garages.
Yeah, but he can't drive it on, 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
one can't go straight out, he's got to come out onto the road, hasn't he?
He can go across onto the.
Is that what an access onto that? Is that correct? I can't remember the picture, if you'd be kind enough to put that. There's a brick wall there, so there's no access.
So that brick wall is owned, I think, at the part of the property.
So I imagine that would be removed if they were.
Yeah. So,
Well, if you allow that one to go through, I'm going to throw tons of cars on my space and say, well, I can physically play Jenga
yeah.
and get it out. Because that's what that is, isn't it?
So,
That's what you're going to do it and we won't go anywhere near you.
so,
This one's probably
Yeah.
the best.
what did Exfolum say? I guess. Because it's sort of cunningly just outside the 3 metre, but they're going to have to excavate.
And we had a similar planning application before that got withdrawn, right? I presume that was because of the position of the new dwelling. It was either too
Yeah.
close or onto
Yeah.
the oil pipe, so this is
So I think that line is the exclusion zone, but anyway, that's their problem. So there is an extra house has been added further down the road.
It's not the first time it's
It's not
been
the
done.
first time that this is probably tighter than that other one because it's
I think our objections are the house. If they can fit
Yeah.
it on them, whether it's an extension or
Yeah.
it's attached, it's not the house. Can you physically justify 5 park car?
Yeah.
That's,
Okay.
I think, to boil it down.
So what I suggest on this, we make no objections subject to highways being satisfied about the access and the parking, the access to the position of the parking spaces and the access to and from the road.
Yeah,
Because if we wouldn't object to it, if it was just coming out sideways, it's a whole
Yeah.
extension, so
I'm never going to.
that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Because you want to be constructive, people want to build
Yeah,
extensions.
of course.
When you look at those 2 cars parked there now, that's leaving an awful lot of room. Right.
But there is a standard size of parking space, so
Yeah.
which is, I think the standard size is smaller than a large car nowadays.
Hence the issue you have in car parks.
Yeah, in fact, I read that some council or I think it's some London boroughs are now charging more for cars that are a lot more than 4.4 metres long.
Yeah, I think Reading have introduced large car parking spaces
Right.
specifically designed for larger cars and charging them as a proportion.
The ones that have got where you put the registration number in, it's actually checking and like it does for.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
I propose that we make no objection, subject to highways being satisfied about the parking
Yeah.
spaces and access. Do I have a seconder for that? We can get to a vote, do we? Councillor David Lunn. And so those in favour, thank you very much. 2 that we are not proposing to consider. There being no objections, have there? Right. So we move on to decision notices.
Just a couple this month. We've just been quite quiet months, but just 2 there that come in.
I'm a film close.
Details reserved by, okay, well, it's approved anyway.
That's the tennis courts, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so that's, it was a detail,
Yeah.
anyway, so
So nothing on our area we can.
there will be,
Here.
no, it will be separate, that'll take 3 months. So, moving on to agenda item 6, West Berkshire Local Plan Review. Any updates arising? There are none.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at a couple of other inspectors' reports just to see what they might say, and noted that they were about 3 to 4 months. They were published they're published by the council. The inspector sent them to the council, and they're published. That was 3 to 4 months after the end of the main modifications consultation. So we're expecting probably within the next 6 weeks, depending on how busy the inspector is and if there are any particular procedural legal issues that he has to resolve before presenting it. So it goes to West Berkshire Council for factual checking. And then they send it back to the inspector and he finalises it. But that sending to the council is only for correction of factual matters, not commenting on his decisions. Okay, that's a local plan review. So moving on to agenda item 9, neighbourhood development plan. This is getting a bit.
Agenda item 7.
Sorry, 7. Sorry, yeah, sorry. Did I say something else anyway?
9.
Okay, so agenda item 7. Neighbourhood development plan. So this is something that is getting a bit dragging on, but there is nothing to report at the moment.
No, to report. It should hopefully pick up in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Groups are pretty much confirmed with working
Yeah.
groups.
So,
Can I ask a question on that? What is stopping them meeting?
getting up and running, we need to formally approve the membership of the steering group.
How do we do that?
We set up a working party of council to do that.
And didn't the decision, wasn't that a default decision from full council anyway, or was this?
Well, that group needs to meet and decide who the members of the steering group are in order to get the process underway.
So it's a pre-meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they decide and then it comes back.
Yeah.
And who would be the members of that? Who would be there?
It will be a combination of councillors and people who have put their names forward.
What's stopping us putting a date in and meeting?
It's just, it's just finalising it really. I mean, we've had response, but it's very limited. There's few individuals that are going to be within 2 or 3 groups, members of the public. So it's making sure that they're balanced, that the group's balanced.
If this is a pre-meeting to decide who's on what, does it matter that not everybody comes, if you see what I mean, as long as you're for it, so you can get, because you know how you get momentum.
Yeah, but it's a working party of full council, so we just need to set a date and agenda and put together the list of people from whom the working party will propose the membership of the steering group.
Would that require the full council to make that set up a date, or is it can it be us? I'm just trying to.
I could be yes, it could be yes.
I can't remember what the terms of reference of that working party were. That would determine what.
Did we push for an actual date for the meeting by the latest or next planning meeting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then that's diaried in. Otherwise, you're moving into the summer and things get more delayed. Because this is the momentum.
Yeah.
And we don't want to lose it if possible, if that's, so irrespective of who can come and who can do what, we need something in the diary for our next planning meeting. That would be very helpful.
Okay. So, West Berkshire Council members, Bisham West.
Yes, just about an application by councillors Pemberton Brooks for West Berkshire Council members bid funding for speed indicator devices was successful. If you look in your packs, there will be some diagrams of the SIDs that are proposed to go at the location between Conway Drive junction for the westbound and near to Ashmore Green Road for the eastbound traffic. West Berkshire Council will be managing the project. And yeah, if you have a little look in the pack, you'll see, get an idea of the devices that can be, will be used. I think it hasn't been fully finalised yet, but very, very close to completion, and I think we're quite eager to get that over the line.
But that's just for information, because West Berkshire Council is doing it. It's funded through West Berkshire Council members' bids, and
yes, it came over, but then since then, Stratford Road Safety Team have taken the onus to sort of see it through to the end. So have received.
These aren't solar powered, aren't they?
They are, right?
Yeah, those are battery powered.
Yeah.
Right.
that's for you, presumably.
I'm guessing it's not all of these, it's going to be one.
No, yes, so that's how. There's many different versions of
But that's not
essentially the same.
process yet.
Yeah, that's not finalised yet. So there's different finances involved, and there's also a data collection program on there, which I think that's yet to be decided whether if it will be used.
Yeah, so I was just going to add as well. I mean, obviously the bid is funded through the scheme set by West Berkshire, but that is also match funded by Thatcham Town Council as well. So I guess thanks have to go to the F&GP committee that set aside funds in the budget to do that. Without that, we would have had to have looked for an alternative funding source. As James has said, you know, we are currently working through with the highways team at West Berkshire exactly which iteration of these we're going to go with. The data collection, again, still discussing. That's probably something we won't pursue, but we don't know. Thames Valley Police already collect quite a lot of data on that road because they sort of periodically net mobile speed vans, and West Berkshire Council are already aware of kind of the accident data close by, so it may be that we're duplicating, but that's kind of where we're up to at the moment.
And if you do collect the data, what's it going to be used for?
Precisely. If we wanted to take more direct action and actually engage with potential speeding vehicles and drivers, you'd need more of a community speed watch setup with volunteers and Thames Valley Police endorsement to collect data and send letters out. We chose not to do that because getting volunteers is difficult, obviously. Absolutely. And this is more of a light touch. Hopefully, the design.
A gentle reminder.
Exactly.
So, fantastic work.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to West Berkshire Council taxi policy.
Yes, West Berkshire Council currently consulting on a draft taxi policy. A new policy with the primary aim to ensure passenger safety and designed to protect the trade. The consultation period closes on the 18th of May. It's a 96-page document. So I will send it to you via email.
Go online, I won't be able to see.
It's then a committee is obviously asked to wishes to respond, but I will send that post meeting to all committee members. It's a PDF, and it's 96 pages long. So
This might be a way of stealing a bit of work from members rather than trawling through 96. I assume there'll be a summary.
uh,
Or is that an assumption?
I suspect this is one that is of specialist interest. So the taxi trade will obviously want to.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a number of things going on here. This is actually, believe it or not, the first taxi policy that West Berkshire will have. It's a culmination of lots of existing policies that to a certain extent duplicate, and it's obviously not easy to find out the detail of. So this is kind of bringing all of that together and having a codified policy in place for the first time. It's taken longer than we would have liked to get here, partly because of COVID and partly because of staff absence. Somebody's actually got to write the thing. But part of the reason it's so long is that there's a lot of duplication in places because you've got to deal with some of the rules and regulations relating to both, and get it right, hackney carriages and private hire vehicles, which aren't quite the same thing.
Legally different.
Legally different, but again, there's a lot of regulations that apply to both. So there's a lot of repetition. It's not quite 96 pages, but it's still quite a detailed document. If you want, I can try and use my leverage as portfolio holder to get a summary from the licensing officer, because there's bound to be a consultation document that was drafted alongside this. You don't have to comment on it. It would be good if you could, because what we don't want is a situation where just the trade has commented. We would like to get as holistic as possible a picture. Because ultimately this is about passenger safety. The primary focus of the policy is to keep our public safe, obviously when they're travelling in a taxi. So, you know, it's very much down to the town council, but I would encourage as much engagement as possible because it will genuinely help us make sure we've got the finished article at the end of it.
Follow-on question from that, please, Chair, through you. Assuming the policy is implemented and actioned, the consequences for breaking the policy is I assume there'll be steps of nearly a breach, a complete breach, you lose your license. So there is a process for it becomes an enforceable policy, if you see.
It does.
For breach.
It does, and all of that detail is covered in the draft in detail. Legally, It also sets out the steps that individual licence holders and vehicle licensees, the process that they can follow if they are found to be in breach, the appeal rights that are available to them, either through the council or through a magistrate's court. But again, it's all included within the policy.
As soon as some point, please get a copy of this, just so that they would be aware of what we're doing, because they'll come across things in their normal roles. Thank you, Chair. That was interesting.
So we will not make a decision on whether we wish to respond until we've seen it.
Absolutely. It's a big milestone.
Yeah.
Never had one before.
We do get annual consultations on the fees,
We do.
which are, onerous enough. I think we generally speak, we don't respond. Anyway. Planning matters. To receive any planning matters since the publication of the agenda.
What's at Hennick Park?
Okay, of which there are two. The first one is the full application for Hennick Park, which for some reason we weren't notified of.
That's fine.
I learnt of it when I received the lengthy objections from Caldash Parish Council. So that is now, I think it's at the end of its statutory consultation period. In other words, the month after the application has been filed. I don't think it will be determined very rapidly. It's already been called in. And of course, that is a site which is subject to the local, it was being proposed to be added to the local plan. So I suspect that the council will probably not wish to determine it until they know the outcome of the inspector's report on the local plan. Anyway, so unfortunately, we learned of it too late to be put on this agenda. But there has been a previous outline application for the same site, slightly different configuration, same area, different configuration of houses, to which we objected. So what I was going to suggest is that we rather than review this at this meeting, I suggested a form of words which I passed by James before the meeting, which covers us not making a decision at this meeting, but still enables us to have representations visible on the council's portal, West Berkshire Council's portal. And I'll read that out. Thatcham Town Council objected to the outline application for this site under 23/000-798/outmatch and maintains its objection to this detailed application. It intends to submit further comments once it has reviewed the application in detail. And my suggestion is that we submit that from this meeting so that there's something visible on the portal. And I don't think that the extra month before the next meeting it'll be decided before then. For one thing, Caldash Parish Council has put in lengthy representations relating to flooding, which of course will affect residents of Thatcham rather than residents of Caldash unless the water flows uphill. As yet, the council, and I suspect the council will need to look at that their drainage officer will need to look at that in detail, and there's no officer's report on that subject, or indeed on many of the other things that have been raised. So there's quite a lot of work for the council to do before it gets for consideration by the planning officers anyway. Councillor McCann.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's your intention to put down a marker by doing this, and does that reserve our rights to comment beyond the normal statutory comment period?
Okay, so the statutory consultation period is the period which the council is forced to leave before it determines any application at all. By law, any representation is made before the determination has to be taken into account. So it doesn't matter that it's in late as long as they haven't decided it. Obviously, if you put something in the last days before when the officer's already written his report, the weight that can be given to it is a lot lower. But as long as it gets in before the planning officer writes their report, this has already been called in, so it'll be a report to Eastern Area Planning. Then it doesn't matter. The statutory limit is just the limit to make sure that you get in before the earliest possible date that a council could ever approve anything, and they never do.
That's very helpful, because my concern was that because we've moved from a 3-weekly to a 4-weekly, we will get anomalies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but our 4 weekly still accommodates any of these anomalies, and we don't lose the opportunity to represent our community.
So it's, and of course, we would have, well, we jointly, it's complicated, we jointly with Caldash Parish, not the council, the parish councils are given 5 minutes between themselves to make representations at the hearing. There has been an occasion where the chairman of the committee has given each of the, when the parish councils had divergent views, he has conceded, generously given each 5 minutes to give their different views. The representations from Caldash are quite lengthy, and particularly the issues relating to flooding are quite involved. There is also, I should say, a representation from Ardent, who are the consulting engineers for the flood attenuation scheme. The proposal, if you know the location of the flood attenuation scheme at the bottom of Caldash Hill, the access to there are 2 attenuation ponds, and the access goes between them from the roundabout. The developer is proposing to use that access to improve that access in order to be an access to the site, and the consulting engineers are not happy about it, to put it that way. So that's another consideration that the council have to make, because obviously,
who owns that strip of land? Isn't it the government then?
no, it's according to the location plan, the ownership is still with the developer, but it is managed by West Berkshire Council. So it's outside of the red line area, but it's shown as the blue line area, which would normally mean that it is adjacent land that is owned by the same developer, but is not subject to the proposal. Okay. I think 148 documents relating to that, most of which are the detailed drawings for a number of different designs of house. So you can readily spot them, and unless you're interested in that level of detail, you can put them to one side. Yeah. It's moderately obvious what are the important documents, except that West Berkshire Council, it's under with their new design of portal, it's less obvious who has submitted objections. So you have to first quite plough through them to find out whether it's a resident who's got a one-line objection or somebody who's put in a lengthy thing. If it's an individual, the body is like the councils that are named, but residents are not. Okay, so that was the first item. So if I've agreed, I think we probably ought to either propose that we make that representation. Do I have a seconder for that wording? Councillor Pemberton, those in favour of that, which is a holding, and of course that will mean that this is on the agenda for the next meeting. Yep. And then the second item is the meeting of Eastern Area Planning tomorrow, which is considering the flood attenuation scheme in the amended plans, which is a new application, but it's amendments to the footpaths and the
gates,
the fenced gates, and we made an objection to that from the aspect of the gates. For the meeting on the 15th of January, I wrote quite a lengthy paper, which I thought would be part of our representations, but it didn't get there. So when I noticed that today, I've submitted that in a personal basis, so it is on the portal and I can then refer to it. In fact, quite a lot of what we said has been overtaken by one of the conditions that the officer has proposed relating to the gates. So there were a couple of points. The access, restoring the access to the footpaths, and the other point was that the gate, the wording is it's unclear on the gate. It says it has to be not locked except for, but the point is the way it's worded, it could be left closed, and the gate that is specified is not suitable for being opened by people on wheelchairs. So I will raise those are points that we discussed in January, so I didn't get to the representations. They're now there, so I can then, if you're content for me to refer to those, what we discussed in January, I will make those points. The main principle about the gates not obstructing the path normally is part of the condition that the officers have proposed. So that's tomorrow evening, Eastern Area Planning, and I expect that the residents of Beverley Close will be speaking for
Oh, yeah,
a broader range of objections.
They're bound to be.
Can I ask you a question? Is there, assuming what has been recommended, because I haven't read it, passes tomorrow evening, and it's just an assumption, it's not an indication of the likely outcome. Are we aware of a potential opening date? Because residents, it's come summer, and people are really quite keen to.
Okay, the two issues are unconnected.
Right.
I suspect that the paths have already been constructed according to the plans that will be approved tomorrow. Because there's no point in making tarmac paths, which is what was the original proposal, only to rip them up after tomorrow.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is that this application, I don't think is a critical factor on the timeline for the opening, but I don't know what the situation is. I see various emails that the work has been delayed, ironically due to flooding.
Is anyone else aware of any other information? Because residents are.
Yeah, Councillor Lillicrop is the contact person for that.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we do know, get some more information, it makes it more likely from tomorrow evening decision. Could it be circulated to members
Absolutely.
generally?
Yeah.
Because it's actually, it's a big issue for a resident.
Yeah.
And that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Even if it only stops people worrying.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so those are the two planning matters I'm aware of. Are there any further ones?
Nothing further.
Okay,
than that.
thank you. So traffic management, highways and road safety.
Yes, we received a notification from West Berkshire Council, planned road closure on Ashmorebury Road. It started yesterday, running to the 11th, between the junctions of Coldash Hill and Bowlingbury Road. That's part of the council's highway improvement programme.
So moving on to traffic management, highways and road safety matters arising since the publication of the agenda.
Yes, there's one to note which I circulated this morning to everyone, and that is the Broadway Thatcham.
23rd, 24th.
Yes, 23rd to 24th, 7 till 5 AM, and that is for carriageway repairs in the Broadway.
You've got to fix them.
Okay.
Yes.
Just don't feel the craving for a kebab.
Friday, was it? Is that some break?
Say Thursday.
People go mad.
Well, it's evening.
PM to 5 AM.
Yes.
That's came through this morning.
Oh, that's fine.
Did I mention other highways matter? The A4, just as you leave Thatcham towards into Midgham,
Yes.
Yeah.
there is a speed limit, a number of speed limit temporary signs, reducing the speed limit down to 30 miles an hour.
Yes.
However, the access onto the construction site appears to be a regular design of permanent access way. So it's unclear to me why there is a justification for those speed limit signs, and indeed whether they are lawfully applied, because there's no roadworks. So I was wondering if we could ask James to inquire of the traffic why there are those signs, and if there's a traffic regulation order applying to them. Are you aware of the situation?
I am. I drive past it at least twice a day.
Yeah.
One's that way and one's backwards and forwards.
Where's that between, sorry?
It is the access road to the police logistics centre.
Like near the Berkshire Arms.
Yeah.
Around that
The
location.
roundabout by the crematorium.
Yeah.
in the Berkshire
Yeah.
Arms.
And it's going east of it.
And it doesn't make sense when it's suddenly drop from dum 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 and there's
Yeah.
So I actually thought it was used as a traffic controlling mechanism just to slow people down to allow the lorries to get.
Yeah, but the point is that may be true if it's a temporary arrangement, but it appears to be, the layout of the road appears to be the same as the one into Colthrope Estate, for example. And I'm just wondering if it's been left there by the developers.
Oh, they got it like that, leaving
Yeah.
signs.
Anyway, so if you
Which Berkshire wouldn't be that?
You see them in heads.
so just a bit of traffic regulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just raise a technical one? I'm sure it's not an issue, and James can still make the inquiries, but I believe that section of road is in an adjacent parish, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's across the roundabout, you leave that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're probably in the parish of.
Yeah.
Wolverhampton.
But you have to brake with it. You can't accelerate out of Thatcham Parish, but.
I'm just.
Technically, yes.
I am merely raising it as a point.
Yeah.
Where I am dealing with it. fine.
Notice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not in our land.
Where the boundary goes.
Roundabout.
No, because it doesn't goes on the, it doesn't north and south of the road in many places. Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, if you could do that. So anything else to, that's any highways matters? So in that case, we've reached the end of the agenda and the meeting therefore is closed. Thank you very much.
Yeah. 4 minutes later than that one. Right.
So,
Thank you for understanding.